Today, we're going to be talking about diversity statements. How do you even structure your diversity statement? What is a diversity statement? Should you be writing one? How do you structure one? What goes in it? How is this different from your personal statement? You have questions, I have answers. For those of you who are new and don't know me, my name is Sydney Montgomery and I'm the founder of Montgomery Admissions Consulting, where we specialize in working with first generation and minority law school applicants. Today we are going to be focused on diversity statements, right? And how to structure them. And I really love diversity statements. I really, really do. I was talking with a student this past week and giving him lots of examples. If you haven't already downloaded our free essential guide to applying to law school, please do so. We also have a specific free guide on diversity statements, although a lot of that information is covered in our free guide. We also have, and I'll talk a little bit at the end about this too, on our Kickstart essay plans, that first tier, it's a $20 tier, it comes with all of our pre-recorded courses. That means on brainstorming your essays, there's one specifically on diversity statements, there's one on addenda, there's one on resumes, there's one on asking for letters of recommendation. There's so many mini courses at this point. I think there's 7 or 8, right? There's so many mini courses at this point. You can actually just get it for $20. That's it. One time, $20. All our courses. So if you haven't done that yet, I honestly have no idea what you're waiting for, because there's hours and hours and hours of material and coursework there that we just restructured our Kickstart essay plans, and you can get all of it for one cost, $20. Okay, cool. Go. Please. Run. Get the courses. If you're like, I need more diversity statement help, there's lots for you. But I was talking to a student this week about diversity statements, and I was telling him that I truly believe that if you do this right, your diversity statement can be one of the most beautiful, one of the most powerful pieces of writing in your entire application. But so many people miss the mark. So some common mistakes, right? A lot of times people will repeat what's in their personal statement, right? If you're talking about your culture and immigration, please do not also talk about immigration in your diversity statement. I've got that, right? Give me something else. Give me a different puzzle piece. I always say your application should be like a puzzle. What am I supposed to do with 2 top right corner pieces? Nothing, right? At that point, the second puzzle piece is irrelevant. It is also not necessarily about how diversity is important in law schools. And that's an interesting one I've seen the last couple of cycles. Students have taken that to mean well, I'm Black and I want to be part of the 2% of Black women, and this is why diversity is important in the law school world. And that's not what the question's asking. It's not at all. And it's a missed opportunity as well. The question is really asking, and there's so many different diversity statement prompts, but at their core, what diverse experience have you had that has given you a unique perspective or a different perspective, such that that perspective will contribute to a law school classroom. But be very mindful of the fact that you don't actually have to talk about the law. You probably shouldn't. I mean, most diversity statements that I've read that have really moved me don't mention the law at all. But they do mention a takeaway. They do mention a different way of looking at the world. They do mention a different way of interacting with others that on its face you can see how valuable that would be to a law school classroom. I also like to say that diversity statements should be intersectional, because those are more interesting. And so we're going to kind of walk through what some of that structure might look like. So that structure, usually you're going to, now if you're following my brainstorming method, you've done all of your universal brainstorming, you have all your stories. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you're going to go and you're going to buy the $20 to get all the courses so you'll know what I'm talking about, or you'll download our free guide so you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you followed my methods and you've done this universal brainstorming, you have chosen your stories for your personal statement, woo woo, and now you've looked at your universal brainstorming and you're trying to choose your stories for your diversity statement. And usually you're going to choose about maybe 1 to 3 stories, right? Because it's only 1 page, double spaced. Sometimes you can go to a page and a half. I like to shoot for 1 page, double spaced, no smaller than 11-point fonts. And you will probably Start off with a story that kind of names, claims your diversity. Doesn't have to be on socioeconomics, race, gender, culture. It could be something completely different. I have read fantastic personal statements about a lot of different things. And then you might have another story that complicates or further shows how that diversity really affected you or made you think differently even about that first thing that you claimed, right? Now we have layers. I love a diversity statement that has layers. And then you have this kind of takeaway, how it has shaped you. So I will give you my diversity statement as an example from way back in the day. I started talking about how I grew up in a Black Southern Baptist church. That's probably not that surprising given the fact that I'm the girl that prays over LSAT exams, right? Southern Baptist roots are pretty strong internally, although still figuring out where I'm going denominationally in the future. This is a conversation for another day. But I grew up in a very strong Black Southern Baptist church in Maryland, and church was kind of the center of my world. Cool. Name it, claim it. However, towards the end of my high school, my mother ended up in a relationship with another woman, and that was really complicated for our family, for our church, for what I thought. I wasn't really sure. I was very confused. But from that experience, I learned to redefine my own faith. I learned the definition of love and acceptance. I learned to challenge some of the beliefs that I had previously thought. But most importantly, I learned that the world was not really black and white. Like the world was so many different shades of gray, which, at this point might seem like obvious, but the good year of 2010 is not as obvious to me at age 16. And so I learned from that moment, right, to not try to put people in boxes and to look for nuance and look for shades of gray and to understand that, when we try to make people fit into boxes and confine them the way that society does, we kind of miss out on a lot of beauty. It's a terrible paraphrase. I promise it was written better than that. But you can kind of see that structure, right? One story. Oh, well, complication, plot twist. What I learned. Right. I've had students who have written fantastic stories. One of the examples that I love, and that's in the course, is about a student who is mixed. And it starts off with a story about his mom, who is Italian. So he's half black, half white. And his mom is Italian. It starts off with this beautiful story about making pasta with his mom. And then his mom gets sick. And she ends up dying. And so you're like, oh, that's the diversity. But then it's layered on with this story of how because he's black presenting, right? People have these judgments and preconceived notions about what he can and cannot do. He realizes in that it's really important not to judge people's identity based on what you see because you don't know what you might be erasing. When people only look at him and see that he's black, it feels like it's erasing the memory of his mom. And so he has learned to move through life letting other people define themselves before he defines them in his head. One of the best, if not the best, diversity statement I have probably ever read. I have read tons of others. I've read a really great diversity statement about people who, for whatever reason, don't have a lot of roots to whatever their ethnic culture might be, whether it's language or food or whatever, and then they go and as they become an adult, they find it, they seek it out, and they learn to reclaim it, and they learn to redefine it for themselves. I have read great diversity statements about being a non-traditional student, about the journey to reclaim education, right? To go back to school later in life. Maybe it starts off with a story about what that person's life was originally, and then what pushed them to go back to school, and a story about what that non-traditional schooling looked like, but also what they've learned about themselves and others. I read a beautiful essay about a student who, her parents were immigrants, they had worked really hard, and she didn't get into college. And so she went to community college, but she had felt like a failure because she had been working really hard to get into college, and the community college route was not what was expected. But when she was in community college and she was around all these different people, non-traditional students with all kinds of backgrounds, she had a different changed perspective, an understanding of the value of education, the value of the journey, and the different perspectives that go into that, and redefining failure and success for herself. And so ultimately, she transferred to a 4-year school, but how she took those lessons with her. I can go on and on and on and on. People's diversity statements do tend to stick with me a little bit more than their personal statements because they're so powerful and so beautiful if you let them be. as I said, you're doing your universal brainstorming. Your personal statement should be more tied into your why law focus statement or focus thesis, right? The reason for going to law school, the area of law, the people that you want to impact, the stories that led you there, the development of that passion. But there may be other things that are so important to you. Just one more, there was a student who wrote a diversity statement about this portrait that she had painted of her grandfather in his final days, and the power of that relationship and that bond and how it changed her. I mean, like I said, I could go on and on and on. There are so many beautiful stories. It doesn't have to be this really big overarching manifesto about the need for diversity in law schools. It should be really personal to you. It should be an essay that nobody else can write. It is your story, fully, deeply, and it should have shaped how you view things, because that's ultimately the question, right? How has a diverse experience that you've had, a different path, a cultural experience, a different kind of upbringing, how has something different shaped you, made you who you are, transformed your thinking, changed how you interact with people, such that when you get into this new community, other people will be changed from interacting with you. You will benefit the community by being there with your experiences and your perspectives. And the reason why I usually always say that most people can write a fantastic diversity statement is because we are all different. We have all gone through so many unique things. You kind of don't get to 21 or 65 or however old you are without going through something kind of unique, kind of you, that has maybe really shaped how you view the world. That is maybe different from the thing that has brought you to law school. And this is an opportunity for you to tell that story, for them to get to know you on a deeper, more personal level. It can be such a beautiful addition to your law school applications, if done right. And it can really help with that human connection. I always say it's about impact, right? We want to make impact with admissions. It's not about standing out. It's just about making impact. It's about connecting with people here in their heart. I remember I have read hundreds of essays at this point. And I still remember some of these really poignant stories because when I read them, it touched me here. That's what I want for you as you're beginning your diversity statement journey. And hopefully that doesn't feel too overwhelming. I promise you, you all have a beautiful story inside of you. And I cannot wait to read them. So I will leave you there with hopefully those diversity statement nuggets. I will, however, tell you a little bit about our Kickstart essay plans, our new ones. If you're like, Sydney, I have written said statement. I don't know if it's as beautiful as some of the ones that you said online. I don't know. We have listened to your feedback. You know, we had these Kickstart essay plans. I'm really always looking for and iterating on how we can continue to give more affordable services, right? That's kind of my whole thing. And also, you know, have a business in which I can pay people and keep the lights on. All of us here are working full time. This is what we do. We are so excited to be able to dedicate our lives and our careers to helping you. So guys, I am, like I said, overjoyed that I was able to be here with you today. I can't wait to see you very soon. Take care, guys.